What is an ABLE account? An ABLE account isn't available as a financial planning tool for persons with disabilities and their families. It is very similar to a 529 college saving plans. And when I say very similar, I mean almost copy and paste. It provides autonomy and independence for individuals. They're making the decision on how to utilize those funds. There are some age limits to it, and there are some contribution limits. Individuals must be disabled before the age of 26. That is changing in a few years, and it'll be 46. But for right now, it is 26. You can have one account per person, and contribution limits are 17,000 in deposits per year, meaning you can't deposit $17,001 in 1 year. You have to. It is just 17,000 unless the individual is working, and then they can add up to 14,580 into their ABLE account. Exempt asset for Medicaid, HUD, and food stamps. And it is also considered an exempt asset for SSI unless the balance reaches $100,000. And then the SSI is suspended. It is not terminated. It is only suspended. So when it falls right below $100,000, the SSI comes back. Distributions from an ABLE account differ a little bit from distributions from a special needs trust. So we have, and this was taken directly from the ABLE accounts website. So I didn't kind of make these up or decide what they were. They are living expenses, education, housing, transportation, employment, technology, support services, health prevention and wellness, financial management and administrative services, legal fees, oversight and monitoring, and funeral and burial costs. And then it says, and more. And I think that's the treasurer's office saying this list isn't exhaustive either, right? We don't see on here clothing, but clothing is a perfectly allowable expense from an ABLE account. The only thing that I've ever seen come across my desk in the way of an ABLE account and a distribution is maybe vacation. So you don't see on my icons, you see I don't have an airplane. Probably the vacation for the beneficiary and maybe the vacation for one other person would be allowable, but it really is dependent on how you are classifying that. So important things to remember. Distributions from an ABLE account are called qualified disability expenses. So the purpose of those distributions are to improve the health, independence, and quality of life. When making a distribution from an ABLE account or making a qualified disability expense, you want to make sure it meets those three categories: health, independence, and quality of life. If it doesn't fit into that, I'm not sure that it would be allowable, but I'm not the one making the decision, right? So we learned that ABLE accounts are done by somebody other than a trustee or a co-trustee, or it is administered by the person themselves. You want to keep your receipts. ABLE accounts are reviewed by the Social Security Administration, Medicaid, food stamps, HUD housing, and the IRS. So we've added an entity there, and the IRS can review distributions from an ABLE account. They will determine if the distribution was a qualified disability expense. If it is determined it does not meet the guidelines, there will be a tax penalty. The tax penalty is minor. It is a 10% of the distribution amount. So the distribution maybe won't impact benefits such as it would if it was from a special needs trust, but it is going to have a tax liability to it. And you want to make sure that when you are making decisions around an ABLE account, that you are making decisions that it is a qualified disability expense. The nice thing about ABLE accounts, and it is so important to remember, is that they can pay for housing. So if you're looking for a way for somebody to be able to pay their rent, and mom and dad want to fund an ABLE account for an individual, they can do that. And then the individual can pay their rent every single month. And that's very, very different than a special needs trust, right? So You can have a special needs trust over here. And every year you can say, I want $17,000 to go over to the ABLE account, and then use that ABLE account for rent, which is absolutely wonderful, because I've told people for many years, I can't pay your rent, but I do have this other way that we can possibly still afford your rent and still not impact your benefits. So distributions from an ABLE account are a little bit different. And it is important to remember that you are now reporting it to the IRS, and the IRS can look at the qualified distribution disability expenses, and they will determine if it does or does not meet guidelines. Thank you so much again, and please feel free to call or email with any questions that you have. And thank you, everybody at the St. Louis Arc, for allowing me to be here this evening.